No one would believe me if I told them about the sad-faced old woman I often see. Her hair is very long and grayish-white. She never speaks, only cries. Sometimes she sits expressionless or suddenly shows an angry face without any reason. She only greets me for a few seconds, never long. But the more I observe her, the more often she appears. At first, I ignored her, but I started to wonder why she often shows herself to me. Then I thought, maybe there is something she wants to tell me. Finally, one day I gathered the courage to work overtime so I could talk to her alone. And sure enough, after she appeared, I mustered up the courage to ask her why she often greeted me and why she often cried. Without explaining through words, I immediately knew what had happened to her decades ago. Like a clear picture, she showed me that she was once tortured in this place. Finally, I said goodbye to her, and the next day I told my boss and coworkers about the incident. Of course, they didn't believe me, but fortunately, my boss decided to hold a Thanksgiving ceremony and pray for the restless spirit of the old woman so that her soul could be at peace. I just moved a week ago, and I feel like there's something strange about my new office. However, I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. One day, I overheard my coworkers talking about how someone's belongings had gone missing again. They were sure that it couldn't have been taken by another coworker, but must have been messed with by a mischievous office ghost. I asked them about it, and they shared a story that gave me chills. Really? Could there be a mischievous little ghost that often disturbs the office staff? For the past 3 months, I've had trouble sleeping. My sleep is always restless due to the work I have to finish with overtime every day, and it's been 3 days straight that I've only slept 1-2 hours a day. As I was concentrating on fighting off sleepiness and working on my report, I suddenly felt a cold touch on my foot. I quickly lifted my foot and wondered what it could have been. Not long after, I was startled by a glimpse of a child's face, which I found quite scary. I screamed, and all my coworkers immediately turned towards me. A few came over, bringing me a glass of water. Go home and get some rest. You're sleep deprived. If your body is too tired, it's easier to get disturbed by ghosts, said one of my coworkers. Going home at 6 p.m. had become a usual routine for me, but that evening was a bit different because the sky was very cloudy and it had been drizzling non-stop since morning. I decided to borrow an umbrella from the office assistant and take a taxi home. I left my motorcycle behind because in these conditions, the roads would be very slippery. I didn't want to risk falling or other bad things happening. Just as I was waiting for the taxi in front of my office, I saw a girl across the street holding a red umbrella. There was something strange about her that made me keep looking at her. What was it? I stared at her for a long time, longer and even longer, until my taxi arrived. I quickly got into the taxi and then looked back. And yes, the girl didn't seem to be touching the ground. Her feet were faint, and her face was too pale for a normal human. I covered my face with my hands and quickly asked the driver to leave the area. A week later, I read shocking news in the newspaper. A girl had been found suffocated to death in the building across the street, killed by her own coworker. So it must have been her ghost asking for help that I saw. Whether I should consider myself unlucky or fortunate, I don't know. I was transferred to an old factory on the outskirts of the city. Before this, I worked at a modern factory that was comfortable and full of luxurious facilities. However, on the other hand, I was promoted. You could say I became the head of that factory, entrusted with the responsibility of overseeing the workers there. The first and second days went very well, but on the third day, a problem arose that forced me to work late into the night. I had to make sure that my subordinates didn't make any more mistakes. Finally, I went down to the location where the machines were producing goods. There, I supervised every step of the production process. Exhausted, I then fell asleep in a comfortable corner I found. I think I slept for quite a while. However, when I suddenly woke up, I was scared to death. I realized my sleeping location was no longer the place I had chosen earlier. Suddenly, I found myself transferred to the third floor near the warehouse, which was quiet and very dark. I immediately ran frantically, much to the amazement of my subordinates. All day, I didn't see Jack, which made me think, he must be sick again. So I left a message on his desk. The next day, the message was replied to with a piece of paper on my monitor. It looked like it was from Jack. But why did he bother replying to that message? If he was back, he could have come to my desk directly. Thinking he was playing a prank on me, I replied to the message and stuck it near his desk again. This went on for a week. On the 8th day, Jack appeared in front of me, telling me that he had to take emergency leave for a week because his father was sick and had to be hospitalized. I immediately became anxious and asked him if he was joking. It turned out he wasn't. A friend from the finance division brought a document to help Jack with the hospital expenses. I swear I was exchanging messages with you, Jack. I showed him the piece of paper, which, as it turned out, only had my writing on it.